Hello, and welcome to the NoobieDentist Podcast, the safe place for newbie dentists to connect, collaborate, learn, and grow. The NoobieDentist Podcast aims to provide high-quality and high-value content for all the newbie dentists out there. With your host, Dr. Omid Azami.
Hello and welcome back for another episode of the NoobieDentist Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Omid Azami, and I am pumped to be here with dental student extraordinaire, Brandon Walker. Brandon is a D2 student at the University of Washington School of Dentistry, and he's kind enough to give an hour of his time on his vacation to come talk to us today. So Brandon, how are you doing? Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, doing great. Hey, thanks for having me, man. Appreciate it.
All right. So give me a little bit of your story. I know you have a pretty cool background. Just, looking through your Instagram story, it looks like you're involved with the military for a while. And now you've kind of gone back to school after a few years. So if you can just, give us a quick, 2 or 3 minute little origin story about yourself, and then we'll take things from there.
Yeah, sure. So, absolutely. I joined the United States Marine Corps back in 2005, kind of on a whim. My best friend at the time said he was taking off and joining the Marines. And I said, nah, I'm going to go with you, man. Can't leave me behind like that. So, went down to boot camp in San Diego, started off an amazing 10 years in the Marines doing signals intelligence, which was, a pretty cool field for me because I've always been kind of a tech geek. I grew up in high school down in Oregon, playing with computers, doing a lot of photography, and just kind of, staying in my own little world, I guess, so to say, of, kind of what interests me. I was never a jock. I was never kind of into sports. I was never really the popular guy. I was always just into like kind of fiddling with things and really just kind of curious. So, I got to travel the world. I spent a lot of time over in the Pacific. So a lot of time down in the jungle in the Philippines, over in Japan. Nice. Did about 3 months on ship with the Navy for a little while, and then ultimately ended up over in Africa doing some cool stuff over there. So, a lot of my time in service was spent doing a lot of humanitarian aid work. Down in the Philippines, we were building schools, building roads, digging wells, doing a lot of medical and dental aid work down there. And I became very involved with the culture. It just fascinated me to kind of get to know the culture down there and learn the language down there. So they really utilized me to interpret for the doctors who are working down there. And that's kind of how I got involved in the whole world of dentistry.
That's awesome. And when did you go? Is this like right after high school, or is this like you've already done your bachelor degree and then you've gone over?
I went kind of straight into college right after high school. I thought I wanted to go in and, be a web designer. So I went down to the Art Institute for a little while and realized it wasn't for me. And that's when I kind of took off and got that awesome art school dropout degree. So
every success story starts with that, I feel like.
Exactly.
Okay, so you did that, and then you went off to do the whole Marine thing. And then when did this whole idea of dentistry, like sort of, I know you said you were helping out with the dentists and doctors while you're out there. Is that when you sort of realized like maybe this is what I want to be doing for the rest of my life, or when did that sort of start?
Yeah, I was really passionate about it, and I had a great time doing it. I just loved kind of being out and interacting with people. It's interesting in the intel field, whether, the Marines, you can either be kind of on the tactical side of things out there in the field working like I was, or you can be on the back end of things doing the analysis work kind of in an office, sitting at a desk. And I had the opportunity to do both, to kind of split my time, 5 years doing the tactical side and 5 years doing the analyst side. And that last 5 years really kind of made me think like, man, I'm not interacting with any people. I'm just sitting behind a computer all the time. Like I really miss what I used to be doing. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, I had a lot of experience while I was in as a dental patient myself. So I felt like I had a lot of empathy and a lot of experience in that sense to kind of give back. And when I met my wife, she was like, hey, I don't know if, this life that you're living right now is the best thing for you. Have you ever thought of going into dentistry? It seems like you'd be, you'd flourish in dentistry. And I said, you know what? I think you're right. And I think I'll do that. So I, took off from there and I just went for it.
That's awesome. It's a good wife to have.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. So you started a couple. In just 10 years that you're with the military, with the Marine Corps, did you do your bachelor degree in that time, or is this something like you've started everything like from scratch after you finished up with them?
I was lucky in the Marines to be afforded tuition assistance while I was active duty.
Yeah.
So I utilized, every bit of that I could whenever I could. It was easier when I was doing desk work because I could kind of do my work on the side and then at lunchtime do some of my homework and partition it out. But yeah, absolutely. I did my whole undergrad in public health while I was active duty, and I kind of crammed that into the last 2 years of my enlistment. And then I had to obviously go through probably about a year of prerequisites at the actual university.
Yeah.
So that's when I kind of transitioned out of the Marines, moved in with my wife, and just went for it, full time, all science prereqs, with absolutely using the GI Bill that, I signed up for back, 10 years ago. I never thought I'd use. So
yeah. So that's a pretty intense year that you had to go through to get in. So now that you're in, I just recently came across your page, and it seems like you're doing a lot of cool stuff. And it seems like you have a lot on the go, and you have some big plans and a lot of vision for where you want to be like after you graduate. And that's pretty cool. And that's why I'm excited to talk to you. And I want to sort of dive into that a little bit. So just to give you a bit about my background. So I grew up in Canada. I did my undergrad here as well. And then I actually wanted to do medicine for the longest time. A lot of dentists I feel share that story. So I applied here and I got waitlisted 2 years in a row. And then finally I was like, man, I don't want to waste more time. I just want to get into somewhere. So I applied to Australia to do medicine. So I got into medicine there, and then just a month later, so literally the application form was MD, and then it's tick a box for DDS, and I was like, I might as well just no extra fee, I'll just put that as well. So a month later, I get into dentistry, and I was like, man, I'd never thought about it. I'd never spend a day shadowing anyone. But luckily, my best friend's dad was a dentist, so I went over to his house one day. We sat down, did a bit of a mind map. For laying out our vision for the next,
Sure.
5, 10, 15, 20 years. And yeah, just I left over one, afternoon, I decided, I was going to do dentistry. So I got lucky that I actually do enjoy it. Now that I got into it, and I do enjoy it. I love what I do. And I think it's such a broad potential of what you can be doing within our profession. So my vision initially when I was in dental school was more so to the business side of things. So I was really heavy into Dentalpreneur podcasts like Mark Costas, the Shared Practices podcast, even Howard Friend did this 30-day dental MBA thing that I was just listening to gospel, walking to school every day. But now that I've come out of school, my wife is she's just graduated from her MD program. So I'm a bit up in the air in terms of where we're going to be long term, because we're trying to see where she's going to get into for residency for next year. So I've kind of pivoted in the last, 6 months to wanting to be a good dentist. So my ambitions changed a little bit from I want to be successful in the business world to I want to be a good dentist and be successful doing procedures. So I'm trying to, start an Instagram page. I've started this podcast to talk to people like yourself to get, motivated and get inspired to do better work. So that's where I'm at right now. So I want to see, as a dental student right now, you're in second year, which is super cool. I mean, obviously you're a bit of a mature student, so your priorities are different to maybe a 25-year-old who's kind of just having fun and trying to get through. So I'm curious, what's your vision? What are you working towards? I know you have your website, which is cool. Not many dental students have their own website going. Not many people have an Instagram page that are posting cases with the quality that you're posting, which I'm really impressed by. So talk to me a little bit about your vision. What do you want to do when you graduate? What do you want to do 5 years out, 10 years out?
Sure. Yeah. The one thing I love about dentistry is that I can kind of tie in, all of my little talents kind of into one thing and kind of just focus all of my energy, all into one place. And so, I never really thought that, I was going to go to dental school and, be really good at it. In fact, when I applied to dental school, I actually thought that I was way behind, all of the younger students who had been doing academia, since they were born. And you were probably way smarter than me. And, I was way behind the curve academically, and I had to do a lot of catching up. But, I guess it goes back to the mentality of the Marines, is that we just try to take like everything that we're given and make the most out of it. And so since I started dental school, I've just been, trying to learn as much as possible, not just to become a good clinician, but to become, a better person. Yeah. And part of that, I guess it goes back to like the Instagram side of doing things, is I've learned over time is that, when you put yourself out there online, and you sit there and you critique yourself, but you also let other people critique you too. That's probably the best way to get better at doing something. I just imagine myself like in a cave somewhere, like doing dentistry and like, just looking at my work and just being like, okay, yeah, that looks awesome, but never letting anybody else see it. So, taking my photography skills and my hobby of, I've just had this huge passion for photography my whole life, taking that and applying it to dentistry. I'm not really seeing patients. I'm not really interacting with patients in terms of, doing restorative work or whatever. I'm down in the pre-clinic, but I'm photographing my stuff as I go. And I'm always maintaining that mindset as if, my mannequin down there or my dentiform down there is a real patient. And so that I can always keep that mindset. So once I get up in the clinic, I'm ready to rock and roll and I can give them the best treatment that's possible. And that really comes back to being, a patient myself and receiving some really good care and also receiving some really questionable care. So I always told myself, when I'm a dentist, I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that the patient that's in my chair gets the best that they can get, given all the circumstances.
That's awesome. Because I was like, so when I was in pre-clinic, I was kind of like an assembly line. I spent so much money on teeth. Like I would just like motor through and be like, no, that's not good enough. And I'll do another one. But I like it, man. Like I really appreciate it. Now that I'm out and I'm, taking some pictures as well and posting them up online. Initially when I started the page, because I thought on Instagram, like everything's perfect, right? Like everyone's posting like good work or, sure. So I was like, man, I'm just going to post like my stuff that I do. Like, it's not perfect. Like I'm just like a new grad myself. And just like everyday stuff, like not necessarily like full mouth rehab or like if I take a tooth out and it looks pretty cool, like I'll post it. Or if I do like a cavity prep or a root canal or whatever, I'll post it. And it's been good. I've had some, people message me and they're like, I appreciate you just putting like everyday stuff that's not like spectacular or it's not like fantastic photography, for like the everyday guy. Right. So, but it's cool. I really appreciate what you're doing. And it's exciting that, you have that quality control like within yourself to like do amazing work right away. Because I think a lot of times, and I'm finding this right now is too, because I'm working by myself a lot, because there's no one there to check your work, right? So it's very hard to like maintain that, like, it's not even like immoral, like to do like, you don't have a perfect margin, but yourself it's not perfect. And if you don't care enough, I guess a lot of people don't. Those like that's fine. It'll just like cement it on and off the patient goes. But it's good that you have this mindset early on, and I hope you maintain it as you go through and keep doing good work.
Yeah, I mean, well, it all comes down to that I am friends with Dr. Bedrosian, and we talked about that for a little while. You talk to him for like 30 seconds in person, and if you don't have an Instagram page, then like you will right after that conversation. He's just a super motivating guy. He's an awesome mentor, and he makes you really realize that like critique is super important. And you're right. Like I think regardless of what dental school you go to, there's always going to be a time where you just don't have faculty or you don't have upperclassmen to come and take a look at your work. And I think I've really benefited from that. You got to be resourceful in a sense. And not only does like taking photos of my work kind of make me step back and just like take a break and kind of really just look at it, but it also allows me to post it and get feedback from, just incredible professionals in the field throughout the whole entire world. I have people, instant messaging me, saying, hey, your denture setup looks good, but your canine could be tweaked a little bit. Hey, your wax up looks really good, but you're kind of missing this. And I just like look at it and I go, dang, I didn't even notice that.
That's so cool though. That's so cool that we have that. Like, it's such a like powerful thing, like the Instagram thing. Like, I know like I started doing it in like dental school too and like posting some stuff. And people were like, initially they were like teasing me a little bit about it and like, no one cares, blah, blah, blah. But like, it's incredible. Like you said, like you're a dental student, and in Seattle and you like post a case and then some guy in like London, UK will look at it and he's like a leading cosmetic dentist and he'll like take the time to comment on your stuff. Like the connection that we have in that community is like so important and so powerful. And I think dentistry as a whole is getting so much better because of it, because there's people like that wouldn't have necessarily access to anyone who's that specialized but without social media, and they get to like in some remote parts of the world, and there's people like in like Vietnam and like Thailand and stuff now that are like doing incredible work, and they're sharing it and they're sharing ideas. So I think it's a powerful tool, and it's cool that you're jumping on so early. So I think it's going to be really advantageous for your like career as you sort of like go along. So have you thought about like specializing at all or anything like that? Or like, I know it's pretty early days still, like, you're not in the clinic yet to know what you like and don't like necessarily, but do you have that mindset of like, I want to be a specialist, or not sure yet?
It's funny. I people tell me, and people joke with me at school, all my buddies at school joke around with me and, hey, prosthodontist, hey, prosthodontist, just because I guess I have that like anal mentality of like, everything has to be perfect and everything has to be just right before, I take a photo or before I turn it in or something. And I absolutely have an affinity for prosthodontics for sure. But at the same time, I'm at a point in my life where like, I'm just super excited to do general dentistry. Mm-hmm. And I like to have the freedom to kind of like move back and forth. I love operative, but I also love fixed pros, and I love making dentures. Oh, yeah. But, I don't want to get stuck in one area. At the same time, like, I'm also a huge outreach guy. Eventually I want to move out of the city and get out kind of in the countryside and really go where dentistry is truly needed. Awesome. Yeah. And so I don't necessarily, want to lock myself in to somewhere. And I also want to kind of be somewhere where I'm still going to be able to be successful, but give patients, the services and the treatments that they need. So, it's always up in the air. I never push anything aside.
I think so I did a podcast with Dr. Bajosian and his partner with the like Pros 365, Ryan. So Ryan worked for a while. So Ryan had a practice. He owned a practice. He worked for like 6 or 7 years before he went into Pros. So I think that's the cool thing about specializing too, is you don't have to necessarily like, go straight out of dental school. You can work for a while. And then after a few years, you're like, no, I'm really passionate about certain discipline and I want to just do that for the rest of my life type thing. So it's never too late, which is pretty cool. So you can always go back and do that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So how's the wife feel about, like, I'm having that same, because I work in the city right now and it's like pretty saturated and I feel like I could be doing more. And I'm always like, man, if I just like move to like, like a smaller city or get away from, the big urban centers. But yeah, like having a partner is like a bit tricky as well, because they got to be on board obviously with that whole thing, and they got to have work out there. Like, what does your wife do? Like, is she pretty flexible in like moving rurally or?
Yeah, my wife's always been super supportive of everything that I've been doing, which is awesome. And she's actually an optometrist, so she's been through kind of,
so she knows
the whole ordeal, and she knows the drill. But at the same time, she knows kind of my background, my history, and she knows kind of, what I'm looking at going forward. So, I've told her like, I want to go out way like rural Washington, just like be in the middle of nowhere practicing dentistry. And she's like, no, we're not going to do that. I got to be like close to like a Thai grocery store. Right. So, but she's given me 2 hours or so outside of Seattle.
That's not bad. You can work with that.
Yeah, I can work with that. So, and we always go back and forth about where we want to go and what we want to do, and kind of, her and I, we want to kind of make start a joint practice together.
That's pretty cool. Yeah.
And kind of like, split it up.
Share reception and
exactly. So, we have ideas, but I spent a month over in Montana working with a dentist in, super rural Montana. And, the opportunities out there are incredible, but if you spend enough time out there, you realize like these people need dentists in these areas. And, I don't know, just for me, I feel with where I am in my life, it's almost, for me, it's irresponsible to like stick around into the city where it's super saturated with, and there's dentists everywhere and everybody has their own dentist. Like, I want to go out and like be where it's needed, so that, I can go home at the end of the day and, feel like,
it's so different, man. Like, I think you feel like a doctor, like when you're out there and you're like providing a service. Whereas I feel like if you're in the city, like you're always like part businessman, part doctor, and you're kind of, your thoughts are like 50-50 split between like marketing and like social media and like what's my numbers. Whereas if you're like out in the country, like you're not worried about that kind of thing. I think you're busy enough, and then you're just like solely focused on like providing a service for the community. And that's like an amazing experience, because the satisfaction from that must be like so much better. It is much better than like being in the city and just kind of doing like a couple of veneers here and there, some whitening. Like you're not really like putting any of your skills to use necessarily. You're not helping anyone, right? Like, I mean, so I think it's pretty cool, and I think it's I think it's something that most people should experience at least for a few years in their career, because I think it's pretty valuable.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's for everybody. I mean, you know, when you go and, you know, especially if you're young, you know, and I was young once, right? Like I'm 33 almost, but you know, I was 22 or 23 years old at some point. And I remember like wanting to be in the middle of it all, you know, where all the excitement is and where there's things to do. And, you know, like you're still kind of experiencing life and learning what's out there. So, you know, I don't hold it against anybody who wants to stick around close to the cities and practice dentistry. Regardless of where you are, you're going to be helping people, you know. But for me, at the point in my life, you know, I'm ready for something quiet and, you know, just like being out in the middle of nowhere excites me, because I feel like I'm on my own. Like if I don't figure out like what I need to do, then I got to send somebody 6 hours away, you know, to get treatment. And maybe they need that, but I think it's a little bit more exciting in a sense.
For sure. All right. So talk to me a little bit about, you just posted up recently that you're like the first dental student to get accepted into this Washington State Dental Association Leadership Program or Institute. So tell me a little bit about that side of things and what your hopes are with like organized dentistry. I know that's something that you mentioned you're pretty passionate about. So what do you want to do with that? And what do you hope to like gain from that and want to give from that as well?
Yeah. You know, I was telling you earlier, you know, the Washington State Dental Association kind of took me under their wing really early on when I started dental school. You know, I applied to their mentorship program and was paired up with just an outstanding mentor who, you know, has the same hobbies as me. He's an Air Force dentist, and is just a great guy overall. He's been giving me just so much advice and so much knowledge from the get-go that, you know, I just felt like, you know, what he was doing with the WSDA and with organized dentistry and with advocacy was right in line with what I wanted to do. You know, we both have that military background where we just want to put our foot down and like stand up for something that's greater than ourselves. So, you know, that motivates me to do it. But at the same time, like I have that 10 years of leadership experience from the Marines that kind of puts me in a really good position to utilize, you know, where I've been, what I've learned, to, you know, to push things forward and to make sure that the integrity of our profession is preserved into the future. You know, I want my kids, you know, to grow up and, you know, be able to receive, you know, outstanding dental care. And I don't want anybody or anything to compromise their ability to do that. So that's what really motivates me to get involved and kind of raise my voice and use my background and experience to, you know, get the information out there for others to, you know, to do whatever they need to do with. The Leadership Institute is, you know, something that's designed for practicing dentists, but as a guy who kind of likes to bend the rules, I decided, well, why not? I'm going to apply to this thing and see what they do. I was surprised to find out that, you know, out of 13 applicants, you know, I was chosen to be one of the 6 that goes forward. And really it's a great program that exposes you to the number of leadership opportunities that are available in organized dentistry, specifically through the WSDA. Just doing the work to preserve the profession. And of course, a great deal of what we do is kind of centered on Washington State. But as you know, things that happen in certain areas of the world or even in the United States tend to set precedences. So, you know, it's just cool to be part of something that's bigger than just dentistry, I guess, and to have that exposure to so many outstanding leaders and mentors. You know, again, it's just utilizing everything that's available, you know, at our fingertips to become, you know, a better me, I guess, and also to help other people become better versions of themselves. I think the only reason I really do anything that I do, the only reason I really put any content out and put any content up is because I want to motivate and I want to encourage people to love what they do as much as I love what I do. And so, I'm just kind of trying to do everything I can to make that possible.
That's awesome, man. And what about within the dental school? Like, are you looking to take on some like leadership or mentorship? I know you're just in second year now, but as you sort of go through and get into become a senior dental student, do you have any ideas about if you want to implement anything within the school, or is there something already in place? Because I know in my school, so I graduated from University of Melbourne, we had, it wasn't implemented too well. I wish it was a bit more well thought out. But we did start sort of like in my year, we started like a mentorship thing where like, like a fourth year would mentor like a second year entering the clinic for the first time type thing, especially for the first few sessions. Like we would go assist for them and like help them out in the clinic type thing. So is there anything like you want to incorporate within your dental school, or is there something already in place that you want to be involved with? Or
well, the WSDA mentorship program has kind of been in place for a couple of years, but it's kind of trickled down in terms of involvement with the school. And so, one of my immediate goals really is to kind of reinvigorate that and reestablish, the relationship between the WSDA and the school, because they have so many resources available to students that students don't even know about. And I've benefited from them because, I just have the curiosity to kind of reach out there and see what's there and gather it all. But, I want everybody else to benefit from it the same way that I do. So, we're talking about ways to where we can kind of reinvigorate and kind of bulk up the mentorship program so that students can really take advantage of their mentors and the opportunities that are available to them, not just within the school, but outside of the school. I'm really involved in the Washington Academy of General Dentistry. They have an outstanding program not far from the school, and they open up continuing education
That's awesome.
courses really for free to students. And that's another thing that I feel like students don't take advantage of that. You go into dental school and you kind of just take the curriculum that they're giving you. Some of it is kind of, dated. Some of it's really dated and some of it's current, but I found a lot of benefit going to these CE courses and just kind of putting everything that I'm learning at the school into perspective. Because there's just fascinating speakers that come and give excellent courses on, composite dentistry or aesthetic dentistry or, root canals, whatever. And you just don't really get that when you're in. And especially when if you remember back in high school and you're like learning algebra and you're like, when am I ever going to use this in my life? Yeah, exactly. I feel like that way sometimes in dental school. I'm like, when am I ever going to use this? But if you go out and you spend some time out in the community, whether you're doing outreach or you're at these CE courses, you see where all of it kind of comes into play. And, I think like what every dental school needs is somebody who can kind of draw in all of those resources actively and make them like super available to the students, because you get emails all day long about opportunities going on. There's all kinds of groups at the school who are doing all kinds of stuff, and it's all great. But when you're like just starting school and you get an email that comes across, it's like, free course, free AGD course, or hey, mentorship program, sign up. You're like, what the heck does this mean? Why do I even need to use it? So there's value there, but there's not always the best explanation of what those values are and how you can utilize them to kind of, set yourself apart and jumpstart you into the direction
awesome
that you
point,
want
man.
to go.
And that's so true, because I think like dental students and like, professional students in general, they're so focused on grades, right? And I think it's a problem. I think it creates a big problem, because even when I was in school, I wasn't super worried about grades because I knew I wasn't going to specialize necessarily, but still, like most people in the class, and I'm sure it's the same case with your school and most of the schools around the world, people are in there to like do well and get good grades, and they kind of like lose that greater picture of what's out there, and they don't know that maybe a lecture from like a world-renowned like endodontist that's in their hometown like for free is like way more valuable than like sitting there and like studying some old lecture notes for like a month. But unfortunately, because it's so grade driven that people like, I feel like they don't explore and like take advantage of these things. And that's another thing I've been like any dental student I talk to, and like the same thing too. Obviously, you're you're a bright guy and you're going to do great things. So you're not going to learn too much from me, but just like make mistakes, man. Like dental school, like you should, like you're under the umbrella of the dental school. You're not going to get sued for like perforating a tooth. And so I think if I could even go, like I did a fair bit, I did quite a bit in my school. I thought I was pretty active within procedures and trying to get my hands wet, doing whatever as much as I could. But looking back now, I think I should have done even more. So I think to yourself and whatever other dental students are listening, like don't get lazy and like don't try and get like perfect grades and like in clinic, because I think people are scared to do much, right? Because they're like, oh, if I screw this up, maybe like, oh, it'll affect my clinical grade, or it's such a like narrow-minded view of things that you gotta like sort of zoom out a bit and like and see the greater picture and just like do as much as you can, do as much extraction, surgery, root canals, get your numbers up. I think it's like the most valuable thing. So the fact that you know this right now and you have the vision for that, that's pretty cool. I think it bodes well for your future that you're already so involved in the community and taking advantage of courses and all that. Because again, I did this stuff too, but again, it was all business oriented. So I'm kind of regretting it now. Like I was like involved in our student committee, and I was like organizing like lectures with like financial advisors and like practice managers and to learn that side of things, right? But I think obviously clinically is so important because that's where we're going to make our money and provide the value to the patient. So so what's like, just to get a bit of a pulse of like what the dental students are thinking right now, like amongst in your cohort, are people worried about like the debt load? Are there people worried about like the saturation issues in the city? Are people talking about that stuff yet? Of like, oh, where am I going to work? Am I going to work corporate? I'm going to find like a traditional associateship position, or am I going to just set up my own shop and go from there? What are you hearing, or even amongst like the older, like the more senior dental students?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I hear the most is, that people are just worried they're not going to get a job or not going to find a job right out of dental school, which I think is crazy because I think like dentistry has a 0% unemployment rate. But I can understand the kind of fear behind that because I mean, these days students are coming out of school with, $500,000 in debt. And there's that huge pressure to kind of get out there, start working and pay it off. I can't really speak for kind of everybody, but, just kind of chatting and talking with people, that's kind of the general, atmosphere, that I see. I feel like just kind of being involved with the organized dentistry world, especially in Washington, the corporate route is, the corporate businesses and companies and the dental service organizations are really taking advantage of, young dental students that are in dental school, and especially those who are just getting ready to come out because they know they have that heavy debt load. They know they're worried about finding a job. And they know that their model is, it's almost perfect for somebody who's in that position. But at the same time, like I also know that private practice dentistry and owning your own business or even associating with somebody who has a private practice or doing a residency is also alive and well, like in our country and throughout the world. So, I don't think that gets as much attention these days as the corporate route, just because the corporate route has so much resources that they're pouring into attracting dental students. So, who knows, like I know that I want to be my own boss and I know that I want to run my own company and do things my own way. Some people just want to do the dentistry and go home at the end of the day, and flip the switch off and do something else. And both things are great for everybody, but it's definitely something that we need to pay attention to because I think the corporate route can really change dentistry in the future. And I've seen it in my wife's profession, in optometry. They've been kind of overrun by, the corporate boogeyman, so to speak. And ultimately patients pay for it, right? Like it comes down on the patients. You get, 10-minute or 15-minute exams. It's not thorough. It's not the best. And you don't leave really thinking that.
And you get a different doctor every time or every other time you're back.
Exactly.
It's different. And I think you're right. Like most dentists will find a job after graduating. But I think the difference has become like the quality of the jobs. I think it's harder to get like a good job, where you have like mentorship, and enough like patient flow to like stay busy and like do procedures to get better. especially in the big cities, right? Like like you said, if you leave the city, like you're fine, like there's no issues at all. But if you want to stay like in downtown Seattle or downtown Toronto or like San Francisco or anywhere like that, like it's gonna be hard, right? So I think the corporate model is like an easy out for a lot of people because it gives them that baseline to have that job. They're making that sort of that guaranteed paycheck. But I think long term it's gonna hurt some people. So I think residency is like a GPR is a pretty good option. Have you thought about doing that at all, like before moving away, or?
Yeah, like as a veteran, I've always been passionate about doing something in the future to kind of take care of other veterans. One of those things is working for the VA. I'm fortunate enough to have my education paid for by the VA. And I don't owe them any time back, but the more you talk to other vets, you see like when we get out, like vets take care of vets. And so I feel like it's an obligation for me, and it's also a passion for me.
That's awesome. Yeah.
To be around other veterans. I also feel like in a sense, veterans kind of migrate towards other veterans. So as a provider, I think as a veteran, you can really connect with other veterans really well.
Yeah.
And that's kind of especially here in the US, with as long as we've been spread out throughout the world and all the craziness, is the barrier between veterans who come back and have certain expectations or certain conditions, certain mentalities that only really another veteran would understand. It just kind of gives you that kind of push to like get more veteran providers involved and aware of the situation so that we can help each other out. And of course, later on down the road, when I started practicing my own, I definitely want to, have, days or certain times during the year where I see veterans for free and do care they need. Actually, I was listening to the Dental Outliers podcast and they had the denture queen on there, and she was talking about how she does dentures for free for veterans or just for anybody, every single year. And that's the coolest idea. And I think that would bring me a lot of joy.
That's so valuable, man. So. If you can, even like in this year, I've been, obviously once in a while you come across that person, who like genuinely can't afford it or they're having some hardship. And there's like no better feeling, man, to do that for free or to help somebody out. I think it's like so valuable that we get to share like our skill set and just like provide value for people like that. So I think it's very noble. I think it's going to be a huge source of like satisfaction for you. I think because people get burnt out, right? So if you're working hard and you don't have these highs of like satisfaction coming in from doing great things like this and giving back to the community, I think it'll affect you. So I think it's really cool. And I think it's a great idea. I know a lot like Mark Costas, for example, I know he owns like a bunch of offices and he does like a free day once in a while as well. So patients come in and he just offers that for free. So I think that's something that I will do for sure too when I have my own practice, and maybe do every once every quarter or something, do that. Or even I was thinking of like linking up with like a charitable organization, like a local church or a mosque or whatever, and saying like if there's anyone like truly in need, then like pass them along to me and I'll take care of them type thing. I think that stuff like it's pretty cool. It's cool that we get to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's so many resources out there too that will pay for all the materials. They'll pay for all the materials and everything. They just need providers to do the work. And so I think it's great. Like I surround myself with a lot of people who are really passionate about outreach in that way. And the thing about the issue with the veterans is crazy because, you would expect that when a veteran, gets their disability rating and they start to get care from the VA, that they'll get full body care, but they only get medical care. They don't get dental care as a side of that unless you have a condition that's specifically related to your mouth. And as we know, like PTSD and other conditions, they can cause TMJD, attrition and all kinds of other stuff. They can cause dental conditions, but they don't get dental.
It's crazy, like the teeth aren't like considered a part of the body. Like it's just like
absolutely, and that's a huge thing. I don't know about up in Canada, how you guys handle it with your healthcare system, but down here it's like two separate things.
So, we have universal healthcare here, but it doesn't include teeth. So it's like or your eyes. So like optometry, like physiotherapy, dentistry, and like chiropractor and stuff is not covered at all by our like our healthcare. So that's all privatized. So it's interesting. It's weird that like those certain like body parts are like it's considered different to like overall health. So that's good stuff. And so just to like wrap things up a little bit, I see you're pretty active like on the Instagram thing. So I know obviously we talked about it a bit earlier, and it's like a means for you to like share your work to get that feedback. But is there anything else like from a marketing or like personal branding side of things? So that's something like I'm pretty interested in these days, is reading up about, that side of it. Is there anything you hope to do with that, like as you graduate, to like transition your page into like, sort of a marketing play to get patients to come to your practice or to come to you specifically, or even as a platform to like spread your message to other patients that or veterans that you want to sort of like reach out to? Because it's become a pretty powerful tool, and I think you can sort of go like multiple ways with it. You can use it to like interact with the dental community, or you can use it to like interact with the community at large type thing. So do you have any sort of goals or anything you want to do with that in the next few years as you graduate, or you haven't really thought that far ahead with it?
I've never really focused on, how many followers I have or whatnot. I really utilize it as kind of like my own personal journal or portfolio, really, so that I can kind of look back and see my progress over time. And again, like I said, it just gives me that outlet to kind of like step back and pause and do something like creative in a way, so that I don't have to sit there in the pre-clinic and just grind away all day long. But at the same, and that's great. I think that's it really works to connect you, with other professionals in the field, to get feedback in that sense. Like we talked about, it really helps you to have that portfolio that shows kind of what you're capable of doing. And even if like when you start, you're not the greatest and your hand skills really aren't there, it shows that like you progressed over time. And I think that's really valuable if you are interested in going into a residency program, or you are interested in associateship and you do want to show somebody your work. I mean, you have it right there. Perfect. And you know, like people sit around all day long and just flip through their phones and look at other people's Instagram. It's like, why aren't you doing what they're doing? Because they obviously are sitting there and they have your attention. So, do something to get their attention. So it works kind of to benefit me in a sense, but I've never really been concerned about that. I feel like in a marketing sense, if I'm doing what I'm doing and I'm doing what I love, and I'm doing it for reasons that are important for me, the marketing side of things will come. Like people will just see that and they'll notice it, and they'll want to be involved in some way. The biggest reason that I do it is, to motivate other people to get involved. We do a lot of stuff at the University of Washington to get, minority pre-dental students motivated to actually like take that extra step and actually go into the field, whether they want to go into medicine or dental, or they want to go into pharmacy. Like diversifying the field is extremely important, especially as the world diversifies. So, that's kind of one of my messages, and that's kind of one of the things that I like to be involved in. And there's tons of pre-dental students on Instagram and on Facebook and on Snapchat. So showing them, like being available to them, and answering questions from them, and then just showing them kind of like your own struggle as you go through, is invaluable to them. Other dental students, like my colleagues, have come up to me and said like, hey dude, that MOD that you did, that you posted, like, I used that during the exam as like an outline so I knew what I needed to do. And it was really helpful. And that's like super humbling for me, is to be able to help out like my own colleagues, and to kind of give them, whatever it is they need to kind of take that extra step and get better. I'm in competition with a couple of my close buddies at school. We're always just like fighting over grades and like showing each other our preps and whatnot. And like, we just push each other to go harder and harder. Yeah, absolutely. So, like it's all part of that. And it all goes back down into the Instagram thing, is like, what I'm really doing is kind of for everybody else. Like I said, like I want everybody else to love what they do as much as I do. And if I can project that through like my platform, I think everything else will kind of come, on its own. But you're right. It's definitely, something that is a great tool for marketing. And it makes you available to everybody, to your patients as well. They can see, the type of person that you are. And that's the most important thing, is having that patient that can connect to you and, who relates to you. They understand whatever, if you're humorous, they understand your humor and they want to be involved with you. If you're just really good at what you do and they want the best care, the best treatment, like they'll see that. So I think it all just comes ultimately, as long as you're doing whatever you're doing, and your reasons are
That's
your
awesome.
own.
And I love that, man, because like I'm the same as you. Like and it goes beyond dentistry. Like nowadays, like now that I'm started, like I've entered the profession and I'm like doing something that I know I'm going to be doing for the rest of my life. And I love doing it. I get so excited. Like even like if I'm like watching TV and some guy's like juggling and he just loves like juggling, like whatever it is, man, like I just get so pumped. Like when I see someone like who's like truly like passionate about like whatever their craft is. And I just want to be involved with it. That's why I kind of jumped on, and I started the page and I started the podcast just to like talk to people who are like-minded and want to do cool things and like are passionate about their job. Right. Cause it's funny. Like I reach out to some people and they're just like not interested. Like it's just like, and it's like cool. Like, well, I mean, to each their own, but like, they're like, oh, I don't want to like talk, or I don't want to be like public about my stuff, or but I think that like-minded people will find themselves eventually. I hope that like these relationships that we build through the podcast and through Instagram sort of like go along with like follow us throughout our career and like serve as a way of like motivating each other and inspiring each other to do better work. I think since I've started, like there's so many people I've met and interviewed, and they're just doing like amazing like dental work like around the world. Like I talked to a guy, he's really does great work, Omar Rakeen. He's in Dubai right now. Like amazing like aesthetic dentist. If you haven't seen his page, definitely check it out. So he's cool. Like we had a full like nerd out podcast. We just talked an hour about like rubber dam and like isolating and like how he like uses like his sectional matrix and how he like does his composites and everything. So it's a cool platform. I think if it's something like, I think you'd be pretty good at it too. I think if you want to jump on the podcasting thing, it's so cool, man, because you get to like, it's such a like powerful like networking tool, because you get to like reach out to people who you like admire. I had Dr. Howard Ferran on my show like last week. I was like blown away, man. I was like within like a month of starting it, he actually came to Toronto like a month ago, and I was in touch with him a little bit, and we actually grabbed dinner together and like had a chance to like meet him then. So it's like such a cool thing, and it's such a cool community. Like dentistry is such a tight knit community to be a part of. So I'm excited for you and what you're going to accomplish and all the things you're going to do. So keep doing what you're doing. You're a super impressive guy, and I have high hopes for you. So I'm I'll be following your work and seeing what you get up to as you sort of progress through dental school and start working.
Yeah. Appreciate it, man. And yeah, like I said, I think the biggest thing is, everybody's biggest limitation is their willingness to like open up and just make themselves vulnerable and to share. And like you said, like doing this podcast, I think it's great. I didn't even know about your podcast until you just hit me up the other day and said, hey, I do this podcast. But it's incredible because you reach out in a way that's, relevant to today's like modern day new dentist or even dental student who's going to be graduating soon. And the things that you're talking about are like right up the alley of modern day, new dentists. And so I'm definitely going to be, listening to all your podcasts now. And of course,
Awesome.
letting everybody else know about it, because, we got to get the message out. Like you gotta get out and do the networking. You got to get out and put yourself out there, make yourself vulnerable.
Most important thing, man. And you don't know, until you ask people, right? You don't know what the answer is going to be. So I encourage most, like you said, one of the best things you said in this show was, as a dental student, like there's so much resources outside of dental school available. And I think people got to really like, learn about that fact, right? So I think that's a really important message, and you actually motivated me. I'm going to start to spread that message a little bit more, because it's so true. Like there's so many things that even like online CE courses and like even YouTube. Just get on YouTube and like watch people do stuff. We're lucky, like we're in such an age of like content creation that everyone's just posting everything. So you can learn really quickly how to like be good at certain things if you're interested, right? So I think that's awesome. And yeah, podcasting, I mean, not even just mine, like mine's like a pretty small time one. There's so much like amazing podcasts out there that I listen to, like, and all throughout dental school. And I think that's one, like a massive resource that dental students should get onto as well. Cause you can you hear like the experts around the world, especially on the bigger podcasts, they get some of the bigger names out. But I think it's such a valuable learning tool. So I think it's better than like listening to music or whatever, but you need the break as well. But I think like, I go all in like you do, it seems like. So that's like all I consume when I drive to work or at the gym or whatever. So I think that's awesome, man. So thanks a lot for coming on, and enjoy your last few days of your vacation. Hopefully the weather stays nice for you. No tropical storms or anything while you're down there. And I'm excited to see you back in school and seeing what you're going to be posting up.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, brother. Appreciate it.